Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of Dr. David Cartland Breaking the Silence of Conversations. And I'm delighted today to be joined by somebody who I was expecting to have a New Zealand accent as he's coming to us from the other side of the world, but actually turns out he's a Geordie. Is it Geordie or we'll come to that in a minute,
I'm a
Barry?
Geordie,
But,
yeah.
so introductions. Barry is a person that I've monitored on not monitored. It sounds like I'm working for MI5. I've been keeping an eye on his story really from across the globe. He's a database analyst. When we were talking off camera, he told me he worked for Oracle as an Oracle database analyst. So I thought he was telling me that he was a all-seeing, all-knowing person, but there is actually a company called Oracle. So no further ado, Barry, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast. Thank you for joining us across the globe. And it's what time is it your end?
It's 12 minutes past 7. So thank you very much, David, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And you're right, it has been a while. I think we contacted sometime last year, earlier on. So it's taken a while, but it's great to finally meet you.
I think by the
If
sound,
not in person,
by
then
the both our
virtually.
stories have seen into we've been dodging bullets between us for some time, I think. So between dodging
I
bullets,
think
we
so.
finally got to press record. So Barry, just give us a
Yeah,
little bit about
excellent.
yourself, your background, what you do for a job, and then we'll move into sort of how you started getting bullets fired at you.
Yeah, what I did do for a job, past tense now. Unfortunately, I think that ship has sailed. I don't think I'll ever work in IT again, at least not New Zealand. So this place is like a village, it's like 2 degrees of separation. So everyone knows someone who knows someone. It's kind of like it's that close knit. So if I ever dared to put my CV out in Wellington or New Zealand ever again, it'd be like they might bring me in for a laugh, for an interview, but that would be about as
That's
far
what
as
I
I
do
could
now,
get.
Barry.
So
I apply for jobs for that reason because Cornwall's very much like that. So I kind of poke the bear by applying for their
same.
jobs just to see how fun it would be to
Yeah,
get.
yeah, just to see what happens. But yeah, that hasn't eventuated. Yeah, I haven't reached that stage where I'm actively looking for work yet. But if that day comes, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I'm enjoying my retirement or my semi-retirement at the moment.
Brilliant.
So you've got to put a positive spin on it. Life is a beautiful ride. It's a
I
journey,
agree.
not a destination. So I've got to be optimistic. No matter what they throw at you, you've got to always got to think.
So we're
There are
talking
people
off
who are
camera,
worse
really,
off.
Barry, about the character of somebody who does data analysis. Really, you're somebody who wants to be in the background.
Yes.
I'll leave
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
for you to
yes.
tell.
Well, yeah. Back to my background, my story. I started off a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and working in the UK as a mainframe COBOL programmer. Um, that was back in 1996. So I've been in IT a very, very long time. I started off programming mainframes for banks, big banks. Came over to New Zealand, worked for the biggest bank here, Bank of New Zealand, for about 4 years. Went back to the UK for the year 2000 stuff that was going on when everyone thought we were all going to have a huge meltdown. And boy, was that oversold. So I ended up working for several banks in the UK, Bank of Scotland, the Royal Bank of Scotland, NatWest. I did a stint in Munich, Germany, working for Motorola. And I also did a stint in Zurich, Switzerland, working for a Swiss bank there. So I had a lot of top level clearance. I mean, you don't get to work for a Swiss bank unless they completely trust you 100%. So I have a lot of good pedigree, a lot of good background for my work. And when I came back to New Zealand in 2003, I started off as an Oracle database administrator. So it was like a bit of a switch from being a programmer developer to actually working hands-on with the data. And I worked 20 years as a database administrator. I worked for the Ministry of Health about 15 years ago, briefly. And then I went back to the Bank of New Zealand, worked there for about 10 years, and then went back to the Ministry of Health because you've got to be careful in New Zealand. The market is so small. So if you manage to disgruntle one client, you basically they will shut the door. And otherwise, it's a bit of a revolving door. There are people who contract between 2 or 3 sites their whole entire careers. But yeah, I ended up back at the Ministry of Health, and I thought, this is it. This is my perfect job. This is the job that will see me to retirement. I was so happy there, looking forward to it. Great team. Everything was great. And then COVID came along. And yeah, that was quite an interesting time to be in health, because I could see what was happening. And I don't know if I was aware more than anyone else, because I was kind of distrusting of the whole financial system that we had at the time. So it sort of led me to be a bit more skeptical about other things as well. And so I thought the vaccine, or the whole COVID thing, I took it with a pinch of salt. Although at the time everyone was terrified, and I did think this is at the end of times. It was, late 2019, early 2020. We thought, oh my God, this is it. This is the big one. Um, but then you sort of get a dose of reality. It's like, well, it can't really be that bad, because it just didn't stack up. It didn't stack up, and especially with them saying it came from a wet market, like the whole bat thing, just didn't add up to me, especially when it transpired there's a Wuhan Institute of Virology right next door.
Some
It's like,
chances, hey? What's the
red.
chances?
What a coincidence that was. Was like, that was a red flag, and they kept doubling down on it. They kept saying, "Oh no, it came from a wet market. It came from the wild. It's a natural thing." Then I started hearing about all this gain of function stuff, and it's like, they were doing what? They were actually trying to make things more deadly. This is actual research that was carried on. Um, and it was carried on in China, I think, at the behest of America. I think it was sponsored by Fauci. I think he outsourced all the stuff to Wuhan because he wasn't allowed to do it in America. And I think maybe Trump was behind that. I'm not entirely sure, but I think maybe it was some of the research wasn't legit or kosher in the USA, so they had to move it offshore to do the gain of function. And China just happened to be it, and it was a substandard lab, and it got out, and that's the kind of the world that we're in now. And then the vaccine that they came up with, I thought vaccines took 10 years to develop, and an average life cycle from start to finish, with it being properly tested, and all the money that has to go into it, and the research. And these things just don't happen overnight. And to have them produce a vaccine within 6 months, despite, and I knew this at the time because I was following a lot of different things on YouTube and whatever before it got shut down, that there were other treatments available, readily available, like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, which suddenly, even though they were some of the safest drugs you could get, suddenly these things were poison, and you just couldn't get them for love nor money. And so, it's like this raises your suspicions when things like that happen. If there's a treatment for a disease that is readily available, already out there, that is cheap to produce, it's tried and tested, that then means there is no reason to produce a vaccine. I think that automatically stops a vaccine from being made if there's already a treatment. And that's according to the WHO guidelines. But yeah, they kept pushing for the vaccine. And the more they pushed for a vaccine, the more, like, I thought, hang on, this just doesn't seem right. And a lot of people, the prosecution, especially in New Zealand, the police, the Crown, they are going to label me as an anti-government conspiracy theory nut job. I mean, you probably get the same in England. It's like, well, nothing could be further from the truth, really. I was nobody special. I was a government worker. I believed in the system. I helped to build the system. I was part of the system, government worker. And I built this vaccination system that they had. I helped to build it. If it wasn't for me, it probably wouldn't have been ready in time. I was kind of important for that project. So they just pushed and pushed for the vaccine, and I was very skeptical of it. I thought, well, I'm not going to get the vaccine because I don't really think I need it, but I'm not going to say tell people not to get it because it's their choice. I always believe in choice. It's your body, it's your choice. As long as you have informed consent, that's fine. But then they just kept overreaching and overreaching, and the government just got more and more dystopian and Orwellian. And we had mandates here in New Zealand. I don't know if you had that in the UK, where they gently forced people to be vaccinated. So they wouldn't say, "Oh, you have to be vaccinated," but they would mandate it so that your employer, sorry, would require you to be vaccinated. Otherwise, you would lose your job. That was the way they got around it, and that caused a lot of people who didn't really want to be vaccinated to have to get it just so they could survive and put food on the table and provide for their families. And that to me was like, that is pure government overreach, and that was so unfair. And I totally disagreed with that. So it's not because I'm anti-vax or anything like that. I'm just pro-choice, and that to me was like, it was wrong to do that.
That mandate, Barry,
And
was that across the board? As in, we had it in the UK. They went for the carers. They went to the
yes,
doctors, but they pulled out at the last minute, at the very last minute.
right.
But it sounds
Well,
like
there
New
was a lot
Zealand,
of,
they're a bit more totalitarian.
I think it was. I don't know what it was like in the UK, but it seemed very totalitarian here. And I mean, Jacinda Ardern, who was running the show at the time, she's not very well liked here in New Zealand at the moment, and probably will not be able to set foot in New Zealand again comfortably without a lot of bodyguards with her. I don't think she'd be very well received, and that's her doing. She destroyed a lot of people's trust in the government, and she destroyed a lot of families and the economy. And oh yeah, she was just awful. And I didn't vote for her, but yeah, it was just such a bad place. So I don't think the mandates were across the board. I wasn't myself. I wasn't mandated, although I probably came about this close to being mandated. Somehow I avoided that. But I know the police, the Navy, um, the armed services, all of those guys were, and they brought court cases to fight it. And some of them won, some of them didn't. It just depends on the organization. I think the police won for some bizarre reason. The police got let off. They didn't have to be mandated. And then they came, and then when the people protested in 2022 not to have mandates, the police were the worst of the lot. They absolutely trashed the protesters. They were awful to them. So yeah, a lot of human rights were abused during that time. Not a good time. There are 11,000 people in Health New Zealand, the Ministry of Health, who were given exemptions, and there's an OIA about that, who were just, you don't have to be vaccinated. But for nobody else, it just seemed Health New Zealand had the exemptions. No other government department got that. And we're trying to find out where those exemptions went. And it's a bit of a black box. They give you job titles and stuff like that, but it's very hard to actually pin it down.
Just a big
And I
red
think
flag,
about,
isn't it? Like you say, of all the
yeah,
departments
yeah,
in
yeah.
the world, it's
A
that
lot of
department.
them.
And then you find out Pfizer are giving out special batches for their employees as well, whilst
Was
high.
that right?
Yeah, they used to have their own special batches, as they called them, for their employees. So all of these red flags are waving collectively and rousing your suspicions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, do you believe in the hot batch theory?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen people. I mean, I know clusters of all sorts of vaccine injuries. You get them to look at the batches. I know there's a website, isn't there? How bad is my batch? But there is now published data across Europe as well, particularly that have looked at the hot lots, as it were, and there is batch correlations to morbidity and
Yeah.
mortality peaks. So that's now not a conspiracy theory; it's fact, like most of the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's funny how they turn out, isn't it? So yeah, the hot batch thing, that is such an interesting thing. I thought that website was removed, or it was
Yeah, it's
taken off
every now and
Google.
again there's shenanigans and it gets locked down and stuff. So you don't want the
Okay.
public to find out about this correlation because, well,
Yeah,
firstly, you
yeah,
don't really want people collapsing outside the vaccine centre, do you? Because it's a bit of a giveaway. whatever the
I know.
reason behind all of this is, but you need to sort of dilute down the morbidity and mortality somewhat. So I'm going
Yeah.
off on a conspiratorial tangent here, but uh,
Now, I think you're absolutely right, and it might be deliberate, or it could well be negligent because you just don't know what the manufacturing process entails. Because who knows if it's been produced in a plant in Poland or Denmark or wherever these factories are. It could have been left on a wharf or a dock for a couple of months in the sun, and maybe the cold store malfunctioned a couple of times. So you don't know. It's very hit and miss. Some of these batches, they're not all curated properly. They're not all quality controlled properly. There's a lot of stuff going on that we are not 100% certain of, and it's all a black art anyway. They do not show, they're not transparent about how they produce this stuff or with the data involved with the manufacturing process. And they claim it's all IP and stuff like that, but I think they owe it to the public to be completely clear about it. So we don't really know what is in these vaccines, or are some of them made slightly differently than others? Is that by choice? Is that by design? Have some of them undergone a process where something bad could have happened to them, and maybe on the ship on the way over to New Zealand, or in a cold store or whatever? Maybe it was kept at the wrong temperature. There's 1,000 different variables that can go on with these to make one particular batch bad and others not so bad. And if you really go down in the conspiratorial thing, you can think, well, maybe they were just testing some out to see which ones were more deadly than others, like the gain of function thing.
yeah,
It's just a natural progression from that, isn't it? Really, if you're thinking, oh, we want to amp up this virus to see how bad we can make it, we'll do that in a lab. Hey, why not do the same with a vaccine? That seems perfectly feasible.
yeah, and we know as well the Pfizer trial itself, they use a different production process to what they did when they
They
manufactured the
did,
actual for
yes.
human use.
Yep. Yep. So the vaccine that people got was not the vaccine that was trialed.
Not that that was a great trial when you dig down into it. I mean, the amount of doctors nowadays, Barry, that I speak to about the trial, they don't even know. They don't know the basics, even the
Oh, I know.
conclusions or the summary points of it. They're just hands over
Yep.
ears. Don't want to know. Because if
It's
anyone with half a brain looks at the Pfizer trial, will see that this thing should never have hit the market ever.
never, ever, ever. No, it was absolutely crazy. And they say, oh, 95% efficacy. It was like, well, that doesn't mean what you think it means.
Well, they
Like
spieled it off
it's
with a
only
statistic.
a marginal benefit has been seen. And they with the way they do the calculations, it gets boosted to some
Well, they were
ridiculous
using
number. Like, oh, it's like,
statistical shenanigans, weren't they? They were using
yes, yeah, yeah,
relative
yeah,
risk reduction, which was relative to the
yeah,
control group, which
yeah,
exaggerated a minute benefit, and rather than absolute
exactly.
risk reduction, which was minuscule.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And the thing is with the control group as well, they didn't keep that control group, so they will never ever be able to compare the vaccinated group with the control group that wasn't vaccinated, because they unblinded the study at the end of the trial and they gave everyone the vaccine. It's
Yeah.
like that's criminal. How to cover your tracks? That's not a proper scientific study.
But you've nailed it. That's criminal. But no doctor knows that that's happened. They just you tell this story that you just spoke about in the last 2 minutes, and no doctor in the UK anywhere that I've come across actually knows about the not only the results of the trial, but the shenanigans that we've talked about, the different processes involved, the unblinding of the control group, etc., and the
Yeah,
outcomes. The outcomes were worse, for example, in cardiovascular adverse events in the
they were.
vaccinated group by a country mile.
Absolutely. I just happened to see a very good documentary the other day. Follow the Silenced. It's
Yes.
by Mickey Willis and it's sponsored by Steve Kirsch as well, who is absolutely awesome. And it was just absolutely riveting. I think it's about 1.5 hours long, and you will not be bored by any of it. It is just absolutely fascinating.
I've literally just
It's one of
retweeted it. I watched it last night, Barry. It's brilliant. It
oh,
is
brilliant.
riveting, and
Yeah,
I've
yeah, I'm
just
going to watch
retweeted
it
it.
again. I was watching it last night as well. It's just so good, such a good one, and it's heartbreaking. I was crying through a lot of it, but it's like it's something you can't stop watching because this is real, and these are people
It's
who
the
are
people that
suffering.
need their voices, and honestly, I deal with them daily. Even to today, where I know the
Oh,
stories before they tell me the story because they'll tell me about they were fit and healthy, they had the jab, And then all cacophony of symptoms kick off: multisystemic inflammatory disorders, clots, neurological stuff. And they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, it doesn't really fit into any of their diagnostic
Yeah.
pigeonhole. So then the gaslighting begins, and the mental
Yeah.
health
Yeah.
is questioned, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and suppression. So
And
hence,
it's labeled as a neurological disorder,
yeah.
and
Well, they call them
they
functional
treat it
neuro
as,
disorders,
yes, that's
functional,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, which
So it's all
basically,
in the mind,
yeah, it's all in the mind.
and they're
Psychosomatic.
treated like crackpots.
Nuts, absolutely bonkers. But so when did you get in? When did you start putting yourself in the firing line, Barry? Obviously, you've got loads of these collective red flags waving. When did you start becoming a
Well,
troublemaker?
yeah, I mean, after I built the system, it was after I helped build the system. I was noticing clusters that you alluded to before, clusters in the data. And I'm not a statistician, but I do know data. I've spent 20 years wading through gigabytes of data, so I do know what looks normal and what doesn't look normal, for want of a better expression. And when you see data where you've got like an average number of deaths, the background mortality rate should be like maybe 0.75, something like that. So maybe 1 in 100, if that. And then when you're scrolling through the data, all of a sudden you see data deaths as a big chunk. So like a whole group of people, a whole cluster of people have all died after being injected at this one site on this one day within a couple of hours of each other. So when you start doing maths, and it's not necessarily statistics, because you can argue about statistics, and it's very, very convoluted. It gets very complicated very quickly. But when you are just discussing probability, it's a lot simpler, in my opinion. It's just like basically you're doing coin tosses. So it becomes a lot more easy to explain, and you can work out the age standardized mortality rate for the people in your cluster. So you can get all those ages and stuff like that, and you can work out, well, these people, their mortality rate should be this, there should be that, and then you come up with a basic number. You say, well, of that, you can call it a cohort if you want, of that group of people. You would expect in 1 year, with just your mortality rate, in 1 year you can say, well, maybe 12 of them should have died or could have died. But then you say, well, no, that's 36 of them are now dead from that group of 99 who were all vaccinated within 2 hours, within a 2-hour period. They all died within a year. So of 99, 36 of them are now dead. And you just say, well, what are the chances of that? And it works out as 1.8 trillion to 1 against. It's
on
like winning the
any planet,
lottery.
that would be pulled at that point, even in one, even if it's one vaccine center with that
That's the
amount.
easiest. It's the easiest way to explain it, and to see that this is wrong. And this is like winning the lottery 3 times in a row for something like that to happen by chance.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't happen. And that is just one tiny little example. That is just one small example. There are hundreds and hundreds of cases like that. And
So
so
you were
when
literally
I
seeing these,
started seeing
you were
that in the
seeing these
data,
treble lottery win episodes, but
yes,
across a number of.
even bigger than that, even more bizarre than that. It's like you're talking like galactically impossible events happening. And this is New Zealand. We've got a population of 5 million. So for this to happen by chance, we'd have to be on Earth for trillions of years for that to actually, and injecting all the time, 24/7. We'd have to have lived for trillions of years for that to eventuate by by natural probability. These things are like off the scale, so remote, and yet they were happening all the time.
So what were you doing with this data? So you were seeing all these aberrations, these like you say, infinitesimal probability events happening every day. And what did you do with it? Did you do a couple of?
I struggled with it because I could see it was like watching a train crash unfold in real time. And I knew the stories of these people that, there was a lot of heartbreak in the data. It's just like when you're sitting behind a desk at a computer, you're just seeing numbers. But then when you translate that into people's lives being lost needlessly, it's like, it hurts. It really hurts. So it was like, for me, that was my burden, because I'd helped to create this system. So it was like, well, that's on me. That really hurts me to have helped to create something which isn't helping people. It's not doing it's not doing a good thing. And it was like Lord of the Rings with the precious. I felt that I was carrying this weight, this thing with me, and I wouldn't stop until we end this thing, and we don't ever have this again. This has been a complete nightmare these last 5 years, this dystopian world that we live in. So whatever it takes, we end the COVID vaccine program, and we just never do this again to humanity. We don't go
Where did
down
you
this
take
road
your
again.
bite then? Where did you take to social? I know you were saying before off camera that you're not really a social media person.
No, I wasn't on social
Okay.
media at all. It was difficult, because everyone else in Health New Zealand are all on board with it. They all think it's safe and effective and it's doing the right thing. But it's you get to a stage when you think this is willful blindness or cognitive dissonance or mass formation psychosis. People, they you've got to see what is out there. You've got to know this is happening, but you're deliberately ignoring it. And you're probably aware of that. That'll be with doctors as well. They know something's not right, but they're deliberately ignoring it. And so yes, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place at Health New Zealand, because I knew everyone was okay with it. They weren't going to do anything. So what was I going to do? What in my little position of being a nobody, not on social media, nobody knew who I was. So how do I get the message out there? How do I help people? So it was difficult. It really was. And the longer it took, the more data came in, which was a double-edged sword. I mean, it was great because the richness of the data set is incredible. You've got a full 2-3 year study, essentially. But the downside of that is that there are lives lost on there. And yeah, it was, I've got to get this story out so that I can help people and make sure that this doesn't happen again. And we should be more careful next time. And so, yeah, I went to a few different sources. I thought, well, what's the best way to do this? Because I'm not a stats guy. I need expert eyes on this. I knew Health New Zealand would not entertain a bar of it, because that was their narrative. They were safe and effective. I didn't know what the Whistleblower Act was at the time. I had no comprehension of it. So basically, I was just using my gut and my moral compass and trying to do the right thing, and just winging it. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna get this out so it can be analysed properly, so that experts can say yes, it is a thing, or it's not a thing. And so I got the data, and I thought, yes, this is a bad thing. So I emailed the executive leadership team at Health New Zealand, at the Ministry of Health. I said, look, you've got to be really careful with this. This vaccine is deadly. It's killing people. I've got the data to prove it. And I knew once I'd done that, once I'd sent that email off, which was a protected disclosure, I knew that was it. I knew the shit was going to hit the fan, like right quick. So it was a very carefully timed thing. So I was just perched at the keyboard, And I knew as soon as I pressed send, it would like all hell would break loose. And sure enough, locked out the system. Cops called the 8 armed police, smashed my house in and stuff like that. It was a bit rough. And ironically, known now the Whistleblowers Act, the Protected Disclosure Act, the police are actually an appropriate authority to make a disclosure to. I had full rights to actually go to the police with this data and say, hey, you've got to do something. So it's a bit of a dilemma when you're trying to disclose something to a group, an organization, New Zealand police, who are pointing a gun at you and you've got your arms behind your back in handcuffs and they've just smashed into your house. So how does that work?
And what are
You
they
know what I
saying to
mean?
you,
I'm
Barry? Then
I'm
they're doing this kind of banging the door through, and they got you cuffed. And what you been charged with here? What?
um, dishonestly accessing a computer system. It's a white collar crime, typing words into a computer basically, and they just treated me like I was a drug lord or something. I've never seen
Searching
anything
for
like it.
things that you shouldn't be searching for.
It
Okay.
was like a SWAT team, when you see these American things, it's like just bombarded. So they're all geared up, all had the tasers
What was the
on and
time frame
guns and
between
stuff.
you pressing send on that email and that happening? Was it hours,
Not
days?
long, actually, not long. So I sent that email off, and it sort of like went a bit quiet. I knew I'd been locked out of the system and everything, so I was like, and I just knew there was like all sorts of shit going on in the background. And then this guy turned up to serve me some documents, like a big thick sheet of papers like that. That was from the employment court, and I was so nervous at the time. I thought it was a hitman. I thought I was going to get whacked because he looked dodgy. It's like this guy that was just hanging around, and he was like wearing tracksuit and a shell suit. He just looked like a hitman. He looked like an assassin. So I was absolutely terrified. And so I went to the house, and he was there waiting for me. He just came out of nowhere and said, "There you are." And I thought, "Oh, it's a process server." And I said, "Oh, thank you very much." I think I was relieved more than anything. I was like, my heart was like, "Du-du-du-du-du." So
Again,
I
just
took it.
sinister, isn't it? A guy hanging around on the
That
street
was
corner, ready to
awful.
give you an envelope in his shell
It
suit.
was so horrible.
Something out of
Yeah.
a
So
horror movie.
I went back and looked through this thing, and it was like, this is absolute all crap. It doesn't even have my correct name or job title on it. That they completely botched it. So they must have been in such a hurry to get everything together. They got my name wrong. They got my job title wrong. They had someone else's details on there, someone else's name, someone else's address.
And was the
But
crux
it's
of
like
it
this.
just stop meddling, shut up, or else?
Yeah, yeah, it was just that employment thing. And I was like, I could not understand it. It was just absolute lawyer gobbledygook. You will cease and desist and blah, blah, blah. So I was thinking, well, it's probably a bit late for that now. So I thought, okay, it's just going to be like an employment thing. They're going to be pissed off with me. I'm going to get sacked. Fair enough. And then I think it was the next day, the cops just raided me. So they must have been behind the scenes. They had this whole operation thing, like headquarters, and that must have been at some really high level to get all that stuff. And I looked through the disclosure packages afterwards that the police had to give me because, I'm self-represented and stuff. And my God, the level of the power that they've got, the surveillance that they've got, the abilities they've got to see the population, and just the surveillance is incredible. And the power to like go to companies like Microsoft and Google and say, stop this guy's email accounts. We want everything. And then Google's just like, yep, okay. And Microsoft as well. And it's like, they'll just all comply. And so the police have got some amazing powers to do stuff like that.
Terrifying.
So I've lost like
Plastic the
all my
hand.
all my emails and all my stuff and all my photographs of whatever I had on there is all gone.
And
All
at this
gone.
point, Barry, correct me if I've misunderstood. You've sent an email saying there's a problem here with the vaccine. There are clusters
Yes.
that I've seen whereby infinitesimal chances of these clusters of deaths
Yep.
are happening. So that's your crime at the moment. You've flagged up a red flag.
Yeah, yeah. I legitimately I didn't know the Whistleblower Act at the time, like I said, but I acted as close to the definition of a whistleblower as you could get. Like I fit every single one of those criteria to be a legitimate whistleblower, even though I didn't know it at the time. I was. But yeah, the thing is about the police, I could have gone to them, but what do you think they would have done? They would, after knowing what I know now, they raided me and put me in handcuffs and stuff like that. That was their reaction. So it's like maybe the Whistleblower Act needs to be revised somewhat, or the police need to take a step back and say, hang on a minute, is this guy legit, or is he a
How were
criminal,
you
or
treated
is
by
he
the police, Barry? So you've obviously been raided, cuffed, put in the
awful?
back of a car.
Absolutely awful. And I have to be honest here. I was taken to prison as well the next day. The guys in the prison guards, were awesome, were brilliant, brilliant guys. And I'll never forget the treatment I got from them was completely different to the way the cops treated me. And the guy in the prison, who's a lovely guy, I'll never forget, he said to me, there's a lot of us in here are really grateful for what you've done and really respect you for that. And a guard, an old screw, say that, it broke my heart. It broke me up. I was like so emotional to hear that. And I was like, it filled me with confidence to know that there are good people out there in, in jobs like security and prison and stuff like that. And maybe a couple of police as well. Maybe a few police as well. But my experience of them, yeah, I think they probably see the worst of everyone, the worst people. So they're probably used to seeing people who are violent, who are not in the best state of minds, and that's just their mentality. So they meet hostility and aggression, or their perceived hostility. They come at you like a bullet again. They are in your face, aggressive, without being, hang on a minute, I'm not offering any resistance here. I'm not a violent person. Why are you treating me like this? It's like, just calm down. I'm not a bad guy here. And so I think that's probably maybe their training or their experience of people. But yeah, it wasn't good. So
Can you fill in the
yeah,
gaps there, Barry,
that was
between
tough.
obviously the raid and the cops taking you into? You said, were you put in prison, or was he just in
Yeah,
jail
yeah.
then?
I was that was that was to do with the evidence. So I was taken to Wellington Police Station. This was Sunday, the 3rd of December. I spent a night there as they were going through all the evidence of, from my devices and whatnot. And so I was a year in, a night in the cells. Felt like a year. And then court the next day. And when I went to court, they were saying, oh, we found a cloud account. So all the data's on the cloud, apparently. So they thought. So they claimed to the judge, they said, oh, we need another 24 hours to get it. And he's a danger if we let him out because he might do something. It's a complete bullshit. So the judge said, okay, then we'll keep him in prison until you get the data from the cloud that you need. And apparently they were claiming it was like a terabyte of data. It wasn't. It turned out it was something completely different, like completely unrelated. So anyway, they used that as an excuse for me to stay in prison for a night. And it was an experience. I mean, I must admit, I didn't expect to go to prison any time in my life, and now I've done it. It's like I don't want to go back, but yeah, it was a hell of an experience. I don't know if you've had anything like that with it. Are the cops been called or anything? Or
No, not yet. They're just trying everything else. They're doing the social media trolling, nothing to do with prison. We've had police. I've had police. The trolls have contacted police about me being a perpetrator of harassment whilst harassing me. The same people reporting me. I've had GMC. I think I've had 250 GMC complaints now since I spoke out. All of them, most of them thrown out, but the ones they hang on to, they've got this approach of if you throw enough mud, they hope some of it sticks. And so I'm very much facing the end of my career in 3 or 4 weeks.
yeah, yeah.
So, which I'm looking forward to,
No.
actually. But no
Yeah.
prison,
Well,
no
good on
porridge
you.
for me.
Good on you. Well, it wears you down, doesn't it? And I know with the stuff that I'm going through, I'm getting all these disclosures from the police, and it's just like they're just desperate and they're throwing everything. And that must be the same for you. Like they're just so desperate to get anything. They're like going through interviews that Steve Kirsch's done on Tucker Carlson's show as evidence against me. It's like, isn't that just true? Isn't that hearsay? So they've got gigabytes and gigabytes of this stuff. And every couple of months or couple of weeks, they just give me a new package. And it's like, it's unbelievable. There's hundreds and hundreds of files in there. And each of them is like a few megabytes each. And there's no way I can look through that. And I think that's deliberate. I think it's just like a confusing tactic. They're trying to obscure stuff, but it's not going to work. And they're just trying to throw everything at me, just hoping something sticks.
So is that what they're doing? They're surveying your social media, they're watching
Oh
what
yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
if they
I've
deem
I
that,
basically
even if
had
it's a third party.
yeah, true. I've had a shadow policeman working basically full time on me for the last year and a half. That's been his job.
This is, I
Has
mean,
been,
this is to
and that's
hear
just
this story,
one.
honestly. I thought I had it bad, Barry, but this is sickening. I actually feel physically sick hearing that you have
Oh yeah, yeah,
literally
yeah, yeah.
looked at
It
numbers,
is.
saw spikes and things that as a data analyst would be the right thing to whistleblow, and all of this. I mean, you probably haven't even scratched the surface of the incarceration that you faced in the last however many months. But what else has happened? I mean, it's bad enough, but have you been stalked? Have you been any threats?
No, no, no. It's New Zealand. I think it's a beautiful country. It really is, and I think Kiwis are okay. You know, it's they're not stalkers. I never get that impression that the people are like that here. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are like that, but like everywhere. But Kiwis are Kiwis are down to earth, and I think they're prepared to live and let live, unless they're programmed. And you get that as well. If it's like a government dog whistle, the government will say he leaked personal data. It's like a trigger point for people. They think my personal information, and they shit themselves. They go into some kind of meltdown. They think, oh, my data. And it's like, well, there was in one of their disclosures, and they give this to the press as well. They claim 12,000 people's details were leaked, and possibly more. 12,000 health, private health records. But it's like, nah, you've got to, you're just saying that. And you're just saying that as a dog whistle to try and get people to react. You've got to back that stuff up with actual evidence and facts. And they can't, and they won't. So that 12,000, I had them on about that, as I wrote to the court and says, yeah, you've got to actually produce some evidence of this, because that's like, where are you getting that number from? So of that 12,000, it's now they hired a really expensive IT company as well, like one of the best in the world, paid them millions and millions of dollars, which is like, my court case is going to be one of the most expensive in New Zealand history, if not the longest running, the most expensive. And they've spent millions on this, and this top IT company have gone through all the stuff and done a lot of snooping, and they're not even looking at the data that I was administering. It's not my data. They're just looking at anything. So of that 12,000 potentially identifiable, they reduced that number to 7,336. So that's like people who could be identified. Okay, that's not saying that they're identifiable. It's like could be, which is like it's a meaningless phrase, right? Of that 7,336, 6,172 of them are deceased. So it's like What they did to get that number, they went through all the obituary columns online. And you probably got that in the UK, you go to a newspaper, online newspaper, and you look for the obituaries, and you basically get names and dates of birth, dates of death. And they just went through all that to get a list of 6,000.
And this
And
is all, Barry.
then
This
they're
is all
saying
from that one
they're
email
saying
that you
that's
sent. This is all
yeah,
from
yeah,
one
yeah,
email.
yeah, yeah,
Or have you
yeah.
continued to make
They
disclosures?
they're trying to get anything to cause people to be thinking it's worse than what it is, and it was the worst thing, the absolute worst thing. It's like it's a list of names. They say, "Oh, you gave out the vaccinators' names." It's like, no, I didn't, for one thing. And the vaccinators' names are available on the government websites anyway as registered practitioners. You can look it up on a government website and get the names. You can even get their telephone numbers and which practice they are at. So it's like all the stuff that they're claiming I released is available online. And 12,000 names of vaccinators or whatever, it's if you've got a list of names, 12,000 of them, how many of them are going to be John Smith or Jimmy Barnes or whatever? It's just it's just names. There are no contact details anywhere in the database that I built. None whatsoever. So you don't get no telephone numbers, no email addresses, no physical addresses, nothing, not one thing. And they cannot find a single person on there.
So they seem to have dived on this disclosure of personal information rather than anything else.
Oh yeah, because people freak out.
Yeah.
It's a psychology thing. They know that if they say, "Oh, your data's been hacked," or your private medical information is being disclosed, people are like, they get their backs up, and it creates it's like Orwellian. It's the hate. It's the minute of hate.
Has your
So
case hit
they
the press, Barry? Has it hit the press? Has it
oh,
been?
it did with the 12,000. That was a huge story. They actually, it was on the news and stuff on the TV. But since then, it's radio silent. And I'm okay with that because this is the mainstream media, and the mainstream media in New Zealand is not doing well. It's not doing well at all. So we've lost a lot of journalists from the mainstream over the last year. I think News Hub or News Talk, one of them, 300 journalists gone because nobody trusts them and nobody's watching the news. So it's like they're doing it to themselves. So it's like if you talk crap and make stuff up, people are going to twig and people are going to stop watching. So it's like the journalism, the mainstream in New Zealand is dying. It's in its death throes, and that's okay with me. So they can't be bothered to come to a court case or a hearing or anything like that. Probably because they haven't got the resources. But that's fine because we are the media now. There's guys like you. They would love to have your kind of figures for tweets and stuff like that. We are the media. Citizen journalism. It's a big thing now. It's a big thing, and I think that's great. It's like democracy. It's like a freedom. It's like opening the doors so that people who want to know can find out for themselves, and they're not constrained by the likes of the BBC to just think what they want you to think.
And what's the
There's
public?
all out there.
What would you say now in terms of the public? I mean, in the UK, I'm witnessing privately at least a massive awakening. Do you feel like the barometer of trust has gone, like you say, away from the media and the government towards people twigging what's gone on the last 5 years?
I
And
think so. I think it's more now than it's ever been, and I think it's a great thing. But it's so slow. It has been painful to watch because when I thought when I did this, I thought, oh, this is it. It's gonna. Nobody can argue with this. Nobody can argue with this data because it's concrete. It's rock solid. It shows the vaccine is a dangerous product and should be pulled. That's it. And I thought, champion, we'll end it. And it just hasn't been like that.
I think we've both upset some very powerful people in Big Pharma, by the sounds of it.
Well, I hope so. And
Yeah.
they deserve it. They've been so wrong and so powerful for so long. It's like they've had immunity since the 80s. Ronald Reagan brought that in. And it's like, why would you want immunity from prosecution if it's safe and effective? What are you scared of? And that answers itself,
Amazing
you know?
question. Amazing question. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah, yeah.
these
Why would
companies
you
have got
need?
massive, payouts. I mean, I posted only the other day the amount of liabilities paid out by all the big pharma companies. It's off the scale
Yeah,
numbers. And these guys get indemnity from prosecution. They're still using
I
emergency
know.
use authorization. They're quashing any treatments that would have helped alleviate any of these upper respiratory symptoms of the alleged virus. Because of that
I know
EUA
it's
that
a crazy
still
world.
stands. But
Yeah.
what's this done to your
And
life,
the
Barry,
thing,
in real terms? Obviously, I mean, this sounds like terror. Like I live a life of being terrorized by the perpetrators of my own campaign against me. But this sounds awful. This sounds another level. So how's it affected you?
oh,
Were you
no, no,
sacked?
no.
Did you get sacked from your job? Did you?
Yeah, yeah. I got sacked from the job pretty quick. Life is beautiful. I always think, watching that vaccine documentary, Follow the Silenced. It's like people have got it so rough out there. There are so many people worse off. And so my little sacrifice is nothing to them. I mean, for whatever it is, it's you're welcome for what I've done.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
have to thank me, but it's like, and life is still beautiful. Life will always be beautiful. And yeah, I just want to live my best life. And I think now, I think I've achieved something. It's like I can die happy. For what I've done, what I've tried to do. It's my own personal opinion, anyway. I think I was in the wrong place at the right time, if you want to put it like that.
Are you being left
And
alone now? Like you said, there's been a radio silence. Is it kind of just like
from the media, yeah. I'm very lucky to be in New Zealand. I mean, people are quite, it's a very quiet place.
is the court case still moving now, or is it on hold, or is it just gone quiet?
No. It's only just starting. This is incredible. It's like the process is the punishment. And you probably realize that as well, the process. And they will bleed you dry. And if I'd gone through the system and hired a lawyer and that, my God, I'd be living in the streets.
Yeah.
I'd be in poverty. Well, I'm not far off now, but it would be just absolutely awful because the lawyers, they're on $600 an hour. And the first couple of legal bills that I got was like, what the? I was like, there's no way you cannot justify that. So I thought I'll be self-represented, and I don't like people raising money for me just to go to a lawyer. Or I never asked for a penny for any of this, and it helps my case anyway because it shows that I'm not in it to get a benefit, and that is one of the key criteria they need to prove my guilt. Is I'm not doing it for any benefit. I never have, never would. So yeah, it's kind of funny to be here. Really
So,
is. It's like
I
completely
mean,
different
it's
to what I would
harrowing. This
expect.
story is harrowing, and you can see that it's been attritional to you, the same as me. Look what it's done to my forehead for starters. But the fact that we're both smiling in the way, it's a sick situation. But as you mentioned, you just got to look at other people. I deal with vaccine injured every day,
I
and
know.
as you
Oh
mentioned, life
yeah.
is good, and I've got the sun out today and the beaches to look forward to this afternoon. And you just got to keep in that mindset, as you said. A lot of it rings true between our situations where the process is the punishment, the financial raping that we get. If I had a solicitor for every letter that I receive from these people, I'll be bankrupt as well. So I'm a litigant in person now. And so, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
sorted the man out from the boys, this whole process.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm more of a lawyer now than I ever was. So I know quite a bit of the law, and I'm not scared of them, and that is good. So I went in there. Oh, we're talking about the trial. So I had a pre-trial a couple of weeks ago, 5th and 6th of May, and it was fine. So I was in there pretty much just self-representing. The court tried to give me a lawyer. It's called an amicus curiae. I don't know if I have that in the UK. It's Latin for friend of the court. It's meant to be like an impartial, neutral legal advisor. So they're meant to be on my side-ish. So I asked this person, do you think, yes or no, COVID vaccines saved lives? And she said yes. And I'm like, you're not
You're
going to help
sacked.
me. You're sacked. You're fired. So I sat in the court. I says, I do not recognize, I acknowledge this person to my left. And I don't want anything to do with that. And no disrespect, I'm sure you're a great lawyer and a great person in that, but I don't want you to help me. And the judge was like, okay, then yep, we'll see how it goes. And so there was two prosecution lawyers and the judge and her, and also a Health New Zealand lawyer as well, who was, against me. And I stood my own. And as soon as I started fighting back at them, the judge says, okay, to the amicus, my little helper, said, okay, you're not needed, you can go. And the longer it went on, the more confident I got out of that pre-trial. And it was such like an eye-opener. And there were people behind me and the crowd. And I said to them, I said to the prosecution, you're meant to be the good guys. You are meant to represent law and order. You put the rapists away, you put the robbers, you put the drug dealers away. But who are the people here to support now? Who are they supporting? They're supporting me. They're here for me, not you.
They've
And
got to
it's
be
like,
careful, haven't they? Really, because they're taking
yeah,
on what I call the people's champions now, and
yes,
like
I
the
know,
GFC
that
case.
they did get that. I think they did get that. And I said to them, I'd say, I'm not here because of the people in front of me. I'm here for the people who are behind me, and that support I felt, and it was such a beautiful thing. And at the end of it, at the end of the pre-trial, I said to them, because there's so many holes in their case, I've just talked to a few of them, like that 12,000 people number that they came up with. That's absolute bullshit. The whole case is bullshit. They're using evidence of my court appearances when I do interviews outside the courts. They're using those interviews as evidence in my trial. That's how desperate they are. So it's like I go outside after a court date, I do an interview. The police are watching that, they'll record it, and they'll package it up and give it to me as evidence. It's like it's crazyville. So yeah, they are absolutely desperate. And the longer it went on, the better it was for me. And at the end of it, I said to the prosecution, I said, I really do hope this goes to trial, to full trial, because I will have a field day. I absolutely will. I will make them look like complete asses because their evidence is absolute shite.
Yeah. Do you think they'll back down eventually, and they'll just use the
I
process?
don't think I've got a choice, but yeah, the process is the punishment. It's gone on for like 500 plus days now, and yeah, maybe it's just an attrition thing, and they'll get sick of it and just want to walk away. But the next hearing is my whistleblower one. So they halfway through they said, "Hey, what about the whistleblower defense?" And I was saying, "I was trying for that from day one." So it's like it's taken 507 days from the twig. So they said, "Oh, right, we'll set aside a date for the whistleblower hearing," and that is a positive move, and I think that's probably the best thing that they can get out of it. So if they do actually hear me as a protected disclosure hearing, then it doesn't matter if you're pro-vax, anti-vax, whatever your status in. This is a good move for New Zealand because it's a case law thing. It's a precedent. I don't think there's been a case like this in history of New Zealand because it's a new act. It only came out in 2022. And this is it's a high-profile case. And so it doesn't matter what side you're on, pro, anti-vax. It's the process that I'm going through now. So if you're a whistleblower, if you see something wrong in your workplace, whatever, it doesn't have to be government, could be private enterprise, could be a factory, anything like that. If you see something wrong that shouldn't be happening, that's endangering life or whatever, it gives you the confidence and the knowledge of the process to follow the right steps to go through. And if I do nothing else, then hopefully that's what's going to come out of this. That people, it will give them closure, it will give them clarity to see, well, this is the way to do it. So it doesn't matter about the vaccine stuff. Like if they do say it is a protected disclosure and I do get immunity, What that means next is they have to then look at what I was blowing the whistle about, which means that they're going to have to look at the vaccine data. But what do you think is going to happen when they do that? They're going to say, oh, no, nothing to see here. It's all good. It's all safe and effective. He was wrong. But if I do get immunity, that is a win. That is a huge win. And it's a win for the whole of New Zealand and for the little guy to do the right thing. And that is important. So I think that is a battle that would be a good one to win. The war is still ongoing. And of course, they're not going to admit that the vaccine is killing people. And I'm just going to have to accept that.
Yeah, even with damning data, I've been in coffee rooms with damning data.
I know.
Used to see it.
The willful blindness.
Yeah.
But what can you do? There are so many people like that. And it's just a process of attrition. And one by one, people are going to wake up.
Yeah.
But we are getting stronger and they're getting weaker. So it's just a matter of time.
And again, with that public swell of support now, everyone knows somebody who's injured now, or they've been to so many funerals, or they know so many people that have had cancers, and they've all got one thing in common. I've just been back in practice in the NHS the last 3 weeks, and I'm seeing some pretty damning stuff. I don't actively go out to look for these vaccine injuries, but if somebody, like, I'm doing referrals for cancers, I've done several. In fact, I went to my colleague and said, how many postmenopausal bleeding referrals have you done? I've done about 5 in 2 weeks, 6 maybe.
And you'd never see that before.
Yeah, I've never seen it before, and when you've done a 2 week wait referral, because it's about 3 pages, 4 pages, and you have to fill it in, and it goes off, and you have to let the receptionist know, the secretary know. So when you're doing them. And skin cancers, I've done about 6 or 7 in the last, like proper squamous cell carcinomas or melanomas in people that are in their 50s that you just wouldn't normally see that many. And
no,
what
it
can
is.
you say?
It's amazing. You're right. The health system in New Zealand is broken. We've got a huge deficit, billions and billions of dollars for a country of only 5 million people. We're in a hole big time with the health system. It's just collapsing. And it's like, well, what has changed to make it like that? What is happening now to make it so bad that you can't go in to see a doctor and stuff like that? But, you look at the prosecution and the judge and the cop who's on my case the whole time, never seen anything. Never seen anything.
Ostrich syndrome, as I call it. Ostrich syndrome.
It is.
Barry, let's say, just to finish really, let's say you're sat in a room of people, doctors, nurses, healthcare staff, and they're all giving out the latest booster. What would you say from your experience over the last 3 or 4 years? What would you say to appeal to them to speak out, to stop this? You've got a captive audience. Loaded question.
I know, but
bearing in mind
just what I said before, it's like, well, if you don't look at the statistics and you just want to look at probability, the probability that this vaccine is killing people is a near certainty as you will get. It's a sure thing. It's a killer. You are killing people.
And if that's not enough to stop them, then nothing will. But again, they're just, like, say, hands over ears, safe and effective.
Yeah, hear no evil, see no evil. Yeah, but do a lot of evil.
Barry, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you ever so much for
thank you.
sharing your story. I know it's been a long time to press record on this, but as we're both getting battered from all angles, really appreciate your time. I know there's been a big time difference as well, so I appreciate you coming to me late in the New Zealand day.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's
fantastic, Barry, and please do stay in touch and let us know how you get on. And hopefully this whistleblowing act is the precedent that New Zealand needs, really.
Yeah, let's hope so. Fingers crossed.
All right, take care, Barry.
Hey, thank you, David.
All right, bye then.
Cheers.